What happens when notorious serial killers face life sentences for their crimes? Where we explore the reactions of 7 infamous serial killers after receiving life sentences. Their shocking responses will leave you questioning the nature of their guilt and remorse. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel Court Capture, and hit the bell icon for more captivating content. When serial killers face the consequences of their actions in court, the balance of power shifts from their reign of terror to the courtroom. Here, the judge holds the ultimate authority. Let's look at how several notorious killers reacted to their life sentences. 7. The BTK Killer, Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader, known as the BTK Killer, bind, torture, kill, was infamous for his brutal method of killing. After terrorizing Kansas for decades, he was caught and given 10 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. In a shocking courtroom moment, Rader tried to feign sincerity, but ended up making his sentencing speech more about himself than his victims. His comments were eerily like an acceptance speech at the Oscars. Rader spent his time in court giving kudos to law enforcement and jailers, even criticizing the prosecution's PowerPoint presentation. His speech, filled with self-praise, struck the prosecutor, Nora Fawn, as insincere. In one unsettling segment, Rader expressed how much he liked animals and even claimed a shared fascination with aviation, stating that, like one of his victims, he had always wanted to be a pilot. Many of the victims' families walked out of the courtroom during his speech, refusing to give him the respect of hearing him speak. In the end, Rader was sentenced to life in prison, and his reign of terror was officially over. 6. The Golden State Killer, Joseph James DeAngelo. Joseph James DeAngelo, known as the Golden State Killer, terrorized California in the 1970s and 80s. His capture in 2018 came thanks to DNA evidence from a relative, and his trial sparked immense public debate. DeAngelo was responsible for a series of rapes, murders, and brutal attacks. Despite the magnitude of his crimes, he pled guilty to multiple murders and was sentenced to life in prison. During his sentencing, DeAngelo's behavior seemed calculated to elicit sympathy. He appeared in a wheelchair, seemingly frail and old, but video footage from his prison cell contradicted this. The footage revealed him walking, exercising, and even climbing onto a table, indicating he was far from the weak, feeble man he portrayed in court. His attempt to control the narrative, appearing as a vulnerable elderly man, was seen as a manipulative tactic. DeAngelo's apology was also controversial. During his sentencing, he muttered a brief and unconvincing apology to the victims' families. It was noted that his attempt to appear remorseful lacked sincerity, leading many to view him as a sociopath who would never truly change. 5. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal. Jeffrey Dahmer, known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, committed a series of gruesome murders between 1978 and 1991. His trial revealed a man who showed little emotion, except when he expressed a desire for death, acknowledging his horrific actions but claiming he was sick rather than evil. Dahmer's lawyer argued that he wasn't a psychopath, but rather a man suffering from mental illnesses such as borderline personality disorder and schizophrenia. Despite his chilling crimes, Dahmer's behavior during sentencing was less dramatic than some other killers. He showed a rare moment of humanity when he asked for forgiveness, saying, "I am so very sorry," and expressed a desire to make amends. However, many questioned whether this apology was genuine or just a ploy to make his time in prison easier, or the hidden motive behind Dahmer's remorse. In prison, Dahmer sought rehabilitation by regularly meeting with a prison minister. Some believe his conversion to Christianity had ulterior motives, such as improving his reputation within the prison system. By aligning himself with religion, Dahmer could potentially gain favor and make his life behind bars more manageable. While Dahmer's remorse seemed heartfelt, his actions in prison raised suspicions. His sudden attempt to rehabilitate and seek redemption could have been driven by self-interest rather than genuine remorse. Nonetheless, it was clear that his crimes were too severe for any form of absolution, and he remained a deeply disturbing figure even after he died in 1994. 3. Michael Swanson. Michael Swanson is a name that often comes up in discussions about the darker side of criminal history, particularly when it comes to infamous serial killers. His story is one marked by chilling events that unfolded over the years, showcasing the complexity and unpredictability of human nature. Swanson, a man with a seemingly ordinary background, background turned into a figure known for committing heinous crimes that shocked the world. His reactions to life sentences were both haunting and telling, revealing a sense of detachment, remorse, and sometimes a troubling acceptance of the consequences. What makes his case so captivating is the combination of his unsettling crimes and the way he handled the consequences. Whether it was the coldness with which he spoke about his actions or his seemingly rational justifications, Swanson's story continues to intrigue those studying criminal psychology. His life sentence became a focal point for discussions about justice, rehabilitation, and the human capacity for change. In exploring Michael Swanson's case, we delve into the complexity of criminal behavior and the profound impact of the justice system. His reaction to life imprisonment sheds light on the often overlooked psychological components of serial killers, offering a chilling glimpse into the mind of a man who once thought he could escape the consequences of his actions. Second, Stephen Port. Stephen Port, often referred to as the Grinder Killer, is a British serial killer whose chilling crimes shocked the UK. Port's story is a disturbing example of the dark side of modern dating apps and the dangers that can lurk behind seemingly innocent encounters. His reign of terror began in 2014 when he lured 4 young men to his apartment using the popular gay dating app Grindr. Once there, he drugged, sexually assaulted, and murdered them, leaving their bodies in and around his East London neighborhood. What makes Port's case so terrifying is the way he used technology to enable his crimes, preying on vulnerable men who trusted him for companionship. He manipulated his victims, posing as a friendly figure before quickly turning into a predator. His method of killing involved administering fatal doses of the deadly drug GHB, often leaving his victims with no chance of survival. Despite his grisly actions, it took authorities several years to connect the dots between Port's crimes. His victims were initially mistaken for drug overdoses or suicides. It wasn't until 2015, when Port killed his final victim, Jack Taylor, that a full investigation was launched, leading to his arrest. Port was convicted in 2016 of the murders and sentenced to life in prison. His case sparked debates on the effectiveness of law enforcement in handling crimes involving the LGBTQ+ community and raised important questions about the potential dangers of online dating platforms. 1. Gary Ridgway, Green River Killer. After his arrest, Gary Ridgway initially claimed innocence, but later pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty, offering authorities critical details about his victims. Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, was convicted of 49 murders, though he later confessed to killing at least 71 women. During his trial, Ridgway's defense attorney emphasized his frugality, suggesting that his motive for murder stemmed from his hatred of prostitutes and his refusal to pay for sex. This twisted reasoning painted a chilling picture of Ridgway's mindset. Despite his guilty plea, Ridgway's behavior during the trial remained eerily cold and emotionless. He showed no remorse as he meticulously admitted to each murder, a process that took an unsettling amount of time. His lack of empathy and detached demeanor as he recounted the horrific details of his crimes left many shocked. Ridgway's calculated and unrepentant nature made him one of the most disturbing serial killers in history. His plea deal spared him from the death penalty, but allowed authorities to gain valuable insight into his victimization of vulnerable women, furthering the investigation into the Green River murders and ensuring Ridgway would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel Court Capture for more true crime stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for our next deep dive.